All right, welcome in to the Big Hitters Only podcast. It is Saturday, January 4th at 2:19 p.m., 10 minutes after the Tar Heels defeated Notre Dame 74-73 to move to, as I pull it up, what are they, 9-7 now?
I think so, yeah.
9-6.
9-6.
Gave them an extra loss. 9-6 with kind of like a must-win over Notre Dame. They dropped to Louisville on New Year's Day. UNC is now 2-1 in conference. Elliot Cadeau hit a three-point shot with like 4 seconds left to tie the game, and then the And-1 on the three-point shot put UNC up by 1, 74-73, and a Marcus Burton layup attempt fell short. Kind of gave them a free run to the hoop. We were texting during the game, guys. A lot not to like, but I would just say, like, good for Cadeau. That's a huge shot. He's missed a bunch of game winners recently. It's good to see that. Ian Jackson off the top here, pull up his stats. He was incredible. 27 points, his best game of his career. He's now scored over 20 or like over 23 points in 4 straight games. He's become UNC's best offensive option. He had 27 points, 11 for 18 from field goal range, 2 for 7 from three-point range. And then UNC, Cadeau had 6 assists to 1 turnover, which I thought stood out. RJ only 8 points, 7 assists to 1 turnover. We got producer Connor and Spencer here. Connor, I'll let you take the floor here. Your initial thoughts on the game and the win.
My initial thoughts is what a shot by Elliot Cadeau. And you mentioned it, Ross. Good for him. This is the type of shot that I think can really change the outcome of a season for a guy like that. Coming into this game, he was 3 for 22 from 3 in his last 7 games. So to see that shot go in such a crucial moment, and he hit the free throw to give this team a big win on the road like that, that's a huge moment. So that's my initial takeaway, is that don't be shocked if going forward we see a more confident Elliot Cadeau, which he's never lost his confidence in himself. But I feel like that shot might start going down a little bit more, especially after the struggles the last 7 games, because in November, he scored double digits in the first 7 games of the season. He's only done that 3 times since then. So hopefully going forward we see more of that shot making, because this team really needs it. But what a big shot for him.
Yeah, he's certainly regressed since the first 4 or 5 games when he came out really looking really good in UNC's early season wins. He's regressed a little bit offensively, but that was obviously a huge shot for him. Spencer, what'd you think?
On Cadeau, I mean, you love that for him. It's awesome. He has got to be able to shoot and hit 1 or 2 threes a game. I mean, even if it's just to keep his defender honest, like, you can't just not guard him out there. And, like, I think for another guy, like, you saw Drake Powell, like, kind of double clutch a couple of threes tonight and not take them. And, like, you just don't want to see guys doing that at all. And then, but Cadeau in particular, again, he's so good at getting to the basket with his speed and everything. Having that in the arsenal, and not being afraid to just let it fly and actually knock one down every now and again is a huge help for him offensively. I think, one thing I was happy to see was that we didn't come out slow. I mean, like, it was kind of tit for tat in the first few minutes of the game, but, like, we had a first half lead against a good team for maybe the first time all season. Like, there's the Campbells and the LaSalles and things where we had leads at the half, but against a Power 5 team, a conference team, like, I don't know if we'd had a first half lead all season. So that was, like, really encouraging to see. We even extended that lead a little bit in the first 6, 8, 10 minutes of the second half. We let Notre Dame back in it. So that was a little bit discouraging. I mean, you're on the road, crowd seemed to be pretty well into it. Their best player, Marcus Burton, was back in, and he had a good, like, middle section of the second half, especially. So, we about gave it away at the end, really and truly, in the last, like, 2-3 minutes. But again, just, like, awesome to finally get one of those close ones and go our way.
I think we're going to see a lot of games like this. This is very similar to the Louisville game. It's close in the final seconds, final minute. Louisville pulled away in the last 5 minutes, but I think almost every ACC game is going to be like this outside of maybe Duke, because I don't think there's really a standout team in the ACC beyond Duke and maybe Clemson, I think Pitt's decent, but like these are all going to be battles. It's kind of what it's become with UNC basketball. So good to get one on the road for sure. I mean, it's just if UNC loses this one to Notre Dame, which might be in the bottom half of the conference, if not like the bottom third of the conference, would have been a really, really bad loss. And just going 0-2 on this little road trip, and you would be 1-2 in conference. It's just not good heading into the dark days of January. UNC has SMU next up on Tuesday, and then NC State on Saturday. Those are the next two games for Tar Heels. Let's hit on some positives and talk a little about Ian Jackson because we haven't really done a podcast in the last 2 or 3 games, but he's been incredible. I mean, he's become UNC's best offensive option. 27 points, 11 for 18. So, I mean, pretty efficient. He does he's a high volume shooter, but you'll take 11 for 18, 2 for 7 from 3, 3 for 5 from free throw lane. I mean, and you see kind of like what's good about him is he's tall enough where when he attacks the basket, the shots are easier. And he has just a knack for putting it in, just like the right angle, the right spin. He takes very difficult layups and they go in, and he is no fear. He has the green light, apparently, in transitions when he's the best. And he can hit a mid-range jumper, hit a three-point shot. Spencer, what stands out about his game that separates him and his improvement? I mean, I think his improvement is just he's been getting the ball more and playing more. Anything else that stands out to you, what you like about him?
I mean, he's definitely getting his touches. Hubert Davis is calling plays for him. In the first, say, 5 to 7 games of the season, a lot of those one-on-one ball screen opportunities were set up for RJ Davis. Now they're being set up for RJ still, plenty, absolutely. But they're also being set up in droves for Ian Jackson. So, he's really getting his opportunities to make something happen. We pushed the ball at times. I would have liked to have seen us push the ball even more, but Jackson is lethal in transition. Absolutely lethal because he can hit the three. He can go up and catch alley-oops. I mean, we saw him catch a really awesome, fun one from RJ this afternoon. That was so cool to see. And again, he's so good at just slicing and dicing, and he's such a slasher, finding little, tiny windows once he gets up in the air to make layups and everything. And I think as well, he has improved on his shot selection. It's hard for you to score 27 points and not take 1 or 2 maybe questionable looks. And he's a freshman. So, in my opinion, I think you kind of get a free pass because the vast majority of his shots now are good looks. You love to see him driving to the basket and taking it up strong or finding that little window, like I mentioned. A little earlier in the season, a couple questionable fadeaways, some off-balance things that you maybe would have liked to have seen him pass it or not take. But now that shot selection is improving. The more comfortable he gets, I think the better it translates to this team's outcomes, Yeah.
He had 4 turnovers. I think that's one weakness of his game, which you kind of, I mean, he is just he's loose with the ball. He's loose with his hand a little bit. That's kind of what makes him good too. He takes risks, drives to the lane. He's really good with his handle too, but because of that, he does lose the ball occasionally. He had a key turnover late. Spencer's frozen on my video. Anyway, and then it's be interesting to see. He played 38 minutes, which led UNC. So it's be interesting, Connor, when Trimble comes back, what UNC does, because I'm not sure if you can take Ian Jackson out of the starting lineup. So I don't know what Hubert does here, because we're seeing a lot more lineups now with 2 or 3 big men in there. We were texting about Cade, Jalen, and Withers and Washington. Connor, what do you think about Ian Jackson quickly, and then kind of what do you think happens when Trimble comes back?
So, funny you mentioned that. That was my next question for you guys, is the Seth Trimble question when he comes back. But touching on Ian Jackson, you mentioned it. He's averaged 25 a game over the last 4. He's also led this team in field goal attempts in all 4 of those games. So he has clearly emerged as the go-to guy. If you need a bucket off the dribble, give it to Ian Jackson. That's what this team's become, and he's, for the most part, produced there. Spencer, you touched on it. On the fast break, I feel confident in him taking it up on 1, 2, even 3 guys sometimes, because his ability to get to the rim quickly down the court, number one, but get to the rim and finish over contact, through contact, that has been such a key part of his game that I think has really helped this team, because Before it was, let's get on the fast break and then throw up a bad shot. But Ian Jackson's ability to finish through contact on those has been huge. As far as what happens when Trimble comes back, that's a tough one, because if you're Carolina and you have a guy that is averaging 25 a game, you can't afford to not start him, because all of a sudden you get off to another slow start, another couple slow starts in a row, and you can't claw your way back, and we're right back where we were 5 games ago, where it's, we're down at halftime again, slow start, trying to claw the way back. So if you're Hubert Davis, I think you have to find a way to keep Ian Jackson in the starting lineup. And maybe it's Seth Trimble's injured, so we have to work him back and ramp him up, and maybe he'll get 20 minutes his first game or whatever. I don't think you can take Ian Jackson out of the starting lineup, even if Trimble does deserve to start, which I've been saying all year.
I don't think you take Seth either. It maybe.
What do you do, Ross?
You can't take RJ out, but you can't take Cadeau out. I mean, you might have to go. I don't know. It's tough. You probably bring Ian Jackson off the bench. I imagine that's what happens. You just bring Ian Jackson off the bench, and then he just plays the same amount. It comes 5 minutes into the game. I think that's what will happen.
Drake Powell started today, right?
Yeah, and he's been the starter for like the last 10 games.
Flip-flop him and Jackson once Seth Trimble comes back. I think that's the only thing that you can do.
That'd be
really.
You lose so much
though, right?
Defensively and rebounding wise, you lose a lot there.
Okay, that's true.
Big deep breath from Spenser there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Yeah, I've said this what feels like a million times to like anyone who's asked me, and I said it on this podcast. Hubert Davis has his hands full trying to figure out these lineups this year, man. And the problem is that what you gain with one guy, you also lose something with him. You know.
Yeah, it's such a lot. I mean, we've talked about this. It's such a lopsided roster with plethora of talented score first guards, and then just nothing bigman wise.
Did you guys see the CBS broadcast put up a stat today? Going into this game, UNC guards combined for 77% of the team's total points this whole year. 77% from the backcourt position.
Do they consider Drake a guard in that? You think?
I don't think so.
Probably
I feel like
not.
that's Ian Jackson, Trimble, RJ, and Cadeau. I don't even think that's including Drake Powell.
I believe that. Yeah. Okay.
Crazy.
Let's get into some. I mean, is there any other positives? Let me just empty the notebook here, as people like to say in the biz. Ian Jackson was great.
RJ Davis playmaking. I thought, yes, he had a lack of scoring and aggressiveness, but he made a ton of really good dump off passes. I thought, which we haven't seen too much.
Really good pass to Withers that stood out. I think in the first half. He was 0 for 3 from 3. I mean, nothing stands out from the big man.
Yeah.
Cade played a little bit more.
We had, I think we had 1 or 2 turnovers kind of in crucial minutes. The one that you mentioned earlier by Jackson late in the game, but we took care of the ball pretty well today. And what we also did was force a fair amount of turnovers and score on those turnovers, whether it was fast break or just the next time down the court. So I remember at one point, this was midway through roughly in the second half, announcer gave a stat that we were like leading 14-7 in points off turnovers. So that was nice to see. I thought our defense was pretty good tonight. One thing that I think helped us in a general sense, both offensively and defensively in this game, was we matched up pretty well with Notre Dame. They didn't have some monster that we couldn't guard. They didn't have some like truly elite, larger guard, that was a tough matchup for us, that like, say, Powell or Jackson would have to guard. That's like experience. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. Auburn had a handful. Alabama had a handful of these guys that are like 6'8", 6'9", that are just like really mobile guys that were tough to guard. So we made the most of the matchups tonight, and really took advantage of not having any mismatches at the end of the day.
All right, we'll get into kind of the negatives next. I want to shout out breakingtea.com/BHO. That is the link you need to use to buy stuff, and it gives a kickback to the podcast. breakingtea.com/BHO. Great t-shirts and sweatshirts, a lot of Bill Belichick stuff, a lot of RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, general UNC shirts. So go on there, use that link. It'll take you to our kind of reference number, and that is a link for breakingtea.com. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to our podcast. and to our show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and tell friends. We'll keep doing these, after every other game or so. I like the late night ones. And as bad as football obviously slows down, way more basketball stuff. Okay, negatives. Let me just tell y'all what I wrote down. Early on, I thought UNC wasn't very tough. I thought the offense looked better, and I want Spencer to talk about that more. I thought at one time we had a lineup with Cade Tyson, Jalen Withers, and Jalen Washington in for an extended period of time. And it just, I don't like that lineup. Like, there's just no offense from those guys. It doesn't work.
Is that when Notre Dame went on that run? That's when they went on that big run, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like in the middle of the second half, so I imagine so. And I just remember one moment, like during that stretch, an Notre Dame offender just blew by Cade Tyson. And it's just like, he is just, I want to be positive about Cade Tyson. He's getting more minutes. I don't know what that is. Maybe just to hopefully get him a confidence boost. But I think we expected him to be so much better, to be just nailing threes, like a Brady Manning. Yeah. He is the opposite. He's not a huge offensive liability, but he doesn't bring much, and then he is kind of a liability on defense. Late turnovers, I wrote down, and then just RJ Davis's 2 points at halftime just wasn't really much of an offensive threat, kind of a afterthought moving forward. What are some things, Spencer? I want you to first of all talk about offense. I did think it looked better, more motion, more combo screens, some nice passing on baseline, backdoor stuff. But we still run that same play. It's a high screen, guys dribbling it, way high screen, and then from there, it's the actions off that.
Yeah. So one quick note on RJ. He's been in a slump. It's no secret. One thing that's really hard, I think, for him right now is his hand is taped up. His shooting hand is taped up. And I saw him a number of times tonight while he was on defense, standing there with his hands at his waist, grabbing his hand like this, because that thumb is hurting. He's had it for 4 or 5 games now, I think. So that hurts it even worse. It's so difficult to catch the ball when you have a sprained thumb, and just to get that thing right in the pocket and be able to go straight up, or, it takes away your touch with the floater. I mean, he had such a deadly floater over the last few seasons, and he's hardly even shooting them, let alone making them this year. So that's really tough for RJ, and, hopefully he can get that healed up. I know the training staff is top of the line in the country. So hopefully, again, that can get healed up and he can regain some of that shooting ability that we've seen over his entire career, quite frankly. Offensively, better team movement tonight. We got a lot of those little backdoor cuts, guys moving from the corner towards the basket off of. So once that screen, like you were mentioning, Ross, takes place at the top of the key, sometimes when the ball handler or the roller gets the ball below the 3-point line, closer to the basket, that guy who guards the corner has to help up. So it's actually a help defensive principle that you should never help up the lane, but you kind of have to sometimes. And so we were taking advantage of either kickouts to the 3-point line in the corner when the guy helped over, or I remember Withers caught an alley-oop, I think, cutting in kind of half back door from the corner. Yeah. So that was nice to see. One of the things and biggest gripes I've had about the offense this year is that guys just don't cut. They just don't cut. So I was watching the Kentucky and Florida game, and dude, those guys are cutting constantly.
Shootout.
Every single play, somebody going backdoor. Every single play, somebody cuts across a defender in front of them into the lane and gets a pass from the top of the key. Just so much cutting, really aggressive movement. And to speak again, about guys in particular, Cade Tyson, one of the things that makes it easy to get open threes is moving. I was a 3-point shooter, and I was just a walk-on, but the only way you get open for open threes is by moving. And because of the such defined sets that we have, where there's a little guy screening for a big guy so that he can then set another screen. So you're kind of screening for the screener, just to, again, get some more flow. once that breaks down, we've got 4 guys standing there and 1 guy going one-on-one. And, if we could just have different options out of those sets that kept movement more consistent, I think it would be better. But again, we played better team offense tonight. We got more layups. We assisted a little more than I think we normally have. I actually did a quick search. And so my senior year, we assisted on 58% of our baskets. In the 2022 season, the rough number was about 53%. So there was an assist on 53% of the basket. This year, it's less than 50%, 47-ish percent. So, that's just hard. Like, if we can just get more ball movement, we have to work so much harder to get buckets and to get open looks. And, if we pass the ball better, we cut more, we try to get guys more open. We did that some tonight. It only helps the team.
Yeah, the lack of movement, that's just coaching. I don't get how they don't watch the tape and don't, coach that. I have a group I run with on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a bunch of UNC fans, and so after games, I was like, "Did you watch last night?" Yes. And it's always the same thing. It's like 1 player's dribbling, 4 players outside the perimeter, not moving. It's like fundamental basketball. Connor, what did you see? What are some negatives or things you wrote down that stood out to you from this game? We'll give you a little time here, then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so I want to touch on RJ Davis here. Like I mentioned earlier, had some good passes today. The playmaking was there, but he didn't take his first shot until 13 minutes left in the first half. So we played 7 minutes without our best player taking a shot. And look, I don't want to – there was a lot fewer forced shots by him today, but this team is not good enough. There's not enough quality scoring options for RJ Davis to have 8 points on 9 shots in an ACC game. I don't see that. And so that's my one gripe with this offense. And we touched on it with Tyler Hansbrough. Real quick, go watch that if you haven't already. Great episode. But we touched on that with him where RJ Davis has to get going. Because at the end of the day, Ian Jackson's great. He's averaged 25 the last 4 games. He's been awesome. This team will only go as far as RJ Davis will take them. Seriously. And I mean that sincerely. So my one gripe with the offense is get him better looks, easier shots. I like Ian Jackson handling the ball more, getting pressure off of him. But I didn't like how uninvolved RJ Davis seemed at times, especially in key moments when Notre Dame makes a run. RJ Davis needs to be that guy to go get a bucket whenever we need it. So
I'm going to push back on that. I don't think RJ Davis is the key to this team. I think
really?
I don't know. I think you saw that if Ian Jackson, there's so many perimeter scorers that if Ian Jackson and Cadeau have really good games, that's enough for this team to win.
But that would be Trimble the problem.
Too, Trimble's so good too.
That would be the problem, though, is Ian Jackson's been great, but can you count on that consistently for the next month and a half? That would be my only issue because he's, 18 years old, freshman? If he does do that, then awesome. I'm going to be super excited. It's just hard for me to see that. Is he going to score 25 every game? It's hard for me to believe that.
Yeah.
He's got
but maybe
5
not.
games in a row.
Yeah, maybe
more
not.
More than 20 points. First guy since Hansbrough to do that. That's good points, Connor, and good pushback, Ross. I think it's
Spenser.
really, really hard. Really, really hard because, you want the experienced guys like RJ to make an impact and to be there night in, night out. But to some extent, and I think this is kind of, depending on which way you look at it, it's either a good thing or a bad thing, is that on any given night, anybody could have the best night. We've talked about that with the big guys, by committee. It's kind of whoever, based on the matchups and whoever is playing the best, that's who gets the most minutes from the big guys. To some extent, that I think is going to have to be the case for the guards. In those crunch time situations, in those we need a bucket moments, whether it's early in a half, late in a half, whenever, you kind of just have to go with whoever has the hot hand. And again, you'd like to have multiple guys with the hot hand.
Yeah.
You'd like to see RJ and Ian scoring 15, 20 plus points a game. And that's totally doable. There's enough touches for both of them to have big nights. Just because, again, the way that our offense is so heavily focused on guards and not, Armando Bacot or Kennedy Meeks, getting 10 touches in the post. So it's out there. And again, we would have won this game handily if RJ didn't shoot
he was 3 for 9.
3 for 9 from the field. 0 for 3 from three-point. And when was the last time you only saw him take 3 3-pointers? I mean, most of the time he takes 6 or 8, if not more than that. You know, he only had 8 points. So, you know, again, he hits a couple more threes or a couple more buckets at all. I mean, he had a wide open one with 3-4 minutes left, I think, 5 minutes left. That was just like perfect little ball screen, little side screen, and he just missed a wide open look.
I would like to see Drake Powell get more touches offensively. I just feel good when he has the ball in his hands. Like I'm good with him shooting threes. He only made 1 out of 6, which is not great.
He double clutched at least 2 of them tonight as well because he didn't have the confidence. He's just with shooting. He's going to be open. Fly, man.
Teams are leaving him open.
Yeah, exactly. Teams are not closing out on him so aggressively. Out on the perimeter. So, I mean, golly, if he can shoot 30-35% from 3, I mean, that is a huge help.
Have him and K. Tyson run baseline. It seems like they love that baseline 3. Get him more involved. I mean, they can't guard everyone, and that's why maybe the reason why Ian Jackson is being so prolific is because they're keying in on R.J. Davis, because R.J. Davis had a really big game a couple games ago. So, you know, it leaves opportunities. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Setchell comes back from his upper body injury. I mean, that's all. I think we touched on a lot of good things here. Looking ahead to the schedule, like I said, they have SMU on Tuesday night, and then NC State. NC State lost today pretty handily to Wake Forest.
Yeah,
Duke plays.
Joel.
Wow.
Yeah, and Duke plays at 6:30 without Coach John Shire at SMU. So if you want to check that out, and like as Connor said, make sure to go back and listen to Tyler Hansborough on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. He touched on general UNC stuff along with the last 2 games. And then also, if you missed the different Bill Belichick podcasts, we had a great kind of reaction podcast to the initial Bill Belichick hire. And then we had Bryn Renner and Jeff Schottmer on. That's been one of our biggest videos that followed that podcast. So go back and check those. Those are kind of during the December period. Anything else, guys?
No, thank goodness we got a win.
Positive note.
Yeah.
I thought Jalen Washington played okay the last few minutes. I thought Jalen Washington had an okay last 5 minutes, guys. 5 blocks today. People were crapping on him, but
8 points.
Last thing, it's just great to get a win. Mentally, wins like this on the road can be so huge. I mean, there's nothing worse than losing a road game, having to sit on the bus back to the airport, sit in the plane, no one's talking. You feel bad for you're sitting on the bus from the airport back to the Smith Center and just like no one has spoken anything to anyone for 6 hours. It is like the worst thing, losing an away game, and no one's now they're able to have a pleasant bus and plane ride. They're able to, have a decent enough Sunday with some prep and, some prep on Monday for the game on Tuesday night. Like, mentally speaking, a road win like this is just huge.
And look, the ACC, there's going to be plenty of games like this. Like, it's hard to win on the road, like Spencer said, and there's going to be tons of close games like this. I think, losing to Notre Dame, especially because I don't think they're that good, would have been such a demoralizing loss. And especially if Cadeau didn't hit that shot, his confidence would be super low because he's missed a couple already this season. Yeah. So that's huge for him. Confidence boost. Maybe they can build on this and get some more wins. It's definitely an easy schedule. Like, honestly, Duke, Pittsburgh, and Clemson are the cream of the crop in the ACC. Other than that, man, they could easily beat SMU, State, Cal, Stanford, Wake, Boston College. That's the next 6 games. So they can crank out some wins here. They could also lose a couple.
There's going to be some dogfights, Ross. There's going to be some dogfights.
Yeah. I think every game is going to be a single-digit game. Like, literally every single game, the entire ACC schedule is going to be a single point deficit.
Yeah, it definitely makes it exciting. I was just thinking about this before we recorded. Like, when I was in school, it was Tyler Hansborough. First of all, it was the 05 championship team. It makes me sound old. I mean, that team was great. And then I had Hansborough. Like, they would beat ACC teams by 25 points. Mm-hmm. The game was over by the first media timeout. And it hasn't really been it's kind of gradually gotten worse and worse. The late years of Roy Williams and then definitely under Hubert. It's just, we don't have that privilege anymore of crushing ACC teams. Yeah. So it definitely makes for an exciting time and, kind of add some enthusiasm to these reactionary podcasts. All right, guys, breakingtea.com/BHO. Rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend, and shout out to Garrett doing the graphics and Connor, who will be editing and producing this podcast. We'll see you guys.